guys, today I have a book haul to share with you. So, you guys, I got 50 plus books.
No!
That was my sister who just scared the crap out of me. Anyway, I have 50 plus books down here that I have not hauled. Some of these things are like over a year old. That's how far behind I am with doing book hauls. So I figured I need to get through this. And yeah, there's a good chunk of this that I've actually already read and reviewed here on this channel. So let's get going with my 50 plus books. Enjoy. First up is The Fate of the Tyrling by Erica Johansson, and this is book 3 in the Queen of the Tyrling series. And I finally have the complete series. Yeah, guys, I read the first book in the series quite a number of years ago. I've been dying to finish up, so yeah, now that I have the complete trilogy, hopefully I can binge it sometime in the near future. And yeah, if you don't know what the Queen of the Tyrling trilogy is about, it is a fantasy-based series following a young girl who becomes queen quite suddenly after the death of her mother. And yeah, it's kind of her journey becoming queen and learning all of her new responsibilities and just the circumstances that her country has fallen into. The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, Volume 1, La Belle Sauvage, and this is the first book in a new trilogy by Philip Pullman, and this is a sequel to his Dark Materials, which I freaking love, you guys. And I have already read and reviewed The Book of Dust, so if you want to know more about it, I highly recommend checking out my review. Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire, and this is a tale of the once and future Nutcracker. So if you can't tell from that title alone, this is a sort of retelling done Gregory Maguire style about the Nutcracker, the famous Nutcracker story. And this is also a book that I have read and reviewed, so if you want to know more about it, I suggest going to check that out. Yeah, this book, I didn't particularly like this book that much. It was fine. I did enjoy it for what it was. It's definitely not one of my favorite Gregory Maguires, but yeah, it's definitely tolerable and enjoyable for what it was. As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. This is historical fiction taking place during the early 1900s in Philadelphia during the outbreak of the Spanish influenza, and it follows this family known as the Brights, and yeah, their life in Philadelphia. Yeah, the influenza breaks out, all hell breaks out on them, essentially. So yeah, kind of this family drama that occurs in the midst of this influenza epidemic. And this is a book that I have already read and reviewed, plus I won this through Goodreads. And yeah, if you want to know more about this book, I highly recommend checking out my review for this as well. The Alphabet House by, hopefully I'm going to pronounce this correctly, you guys, Juicy? I have a feeling it's not Juicy, because that sounds a little strange. Maybe it's UC. UC Adler Olsen is how I'll choose to pronounce it. If you have any idea how to pronounce his name, please let me know. But yeah, The Alphabet House. This book sounds very exciting, you guys. This is World War II historical fiction, and it follows 2 British pilots who get shot down, and they find themselves jumping onto a German train that has a bunch of SS soldiers on it. And yeah, they find themselves taken to this place known as the Alphabet House. And I'm trying to remember all of the description here. Something about the Alphabet House. It's some sort of asylum, a hospital, but patients are being treated and experimented on, and it seriously sounds right up my alley. Yeah, guys, I think I found it for like $5 at Walmart. That was pretty exciting. So yeah, I definitely cannot wait to get to this book. It sounds right up my alley. I definitely really enjoy World War II historical fiction, and yes, something about this plot, it sounds very different for this type of World War II fiction. You know, something very, very different about it that I'm very much looking forward to. Figment, Volume 2, Legacy of Imagination, and this is put out by Disney/Marvel. It is a graphic novel, And yeah, I have already read and reviewed the first Figment graphic novel. As you can see, this is volume 2. I adored volume 1. It was absolutely sweet and cute. And I finally found volume 2. I went on a trip recently to Disney back in December, and I saw this volume, and I've not been able to find it anywhere else, so I immediately grabbed it. So I definitely cannot wait to get to this. Figment, if you don't know about Figment, Figment is this purple dragon. He exists primarily at the Epcot Pavilion at Disney World. So yeah, I don't know if a lot of people know who Figment is. He's kind of one of those rare Disney characters. You either know him or you don't. But yeah, that's essentially what this comic is about. It's about him. The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. This is also a book I have read and reviewed, and I also won this through Goodreads giveaways. And this is a book that takes place in 2 dual narratives. Some of it takes place in the 1950s, some of it takes place in a modern day setting, and yeah, it all revolves around this boarding school. This boarding school that used to house essentially wayward girls who were, you know, illegitimate bastards, or girls who were doing no-nos in their life or something. Girls that no one particularly wanted. So yeah, a book about a boarding school kind of has a creepy gothic atmosphere to it, if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want to know more about it, I highly recommend checking out my review for it. Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. This is book 4 in her Outlander series about Claire Fraser and Jamie Fraser and their time-traveling adventures through Scotland and France. And yeah, in this installment, they head to America to begin anew with their lives. And that's kind of all I can say. Like I said, it's book 4 in the series. It's kind of all I can say about it. I have read this book. A review for it is coming out sometime in the future. I do have a review up on Goodreads if you want to read it there. Yeah, what I can say about this is that it is definitely my least favorite book in the series so far. Yeah, guys, I'll kind of leave you hanging with that little tidbit right there. The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. This is historical fiction, and it is actually about to be made into a movie, if I'm not mistaken, starring Domhnall Gleeson, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, this follows a physician by the name of Dr. Faraday. He goes to this crumbling family estate, and yeah, what I know about this novel, I don't know too much about it, but what I do know is that it's sort of a bit of a gothic tale with some interesting family drama going on. And yeah, this physician, Dr. Faraday, kind of finds himself wrapped up into this whole mystery within this family and this decaying family home and whatnot. It almost kind of makes me think of like The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe in some ways. Maybe I'm terribly off with that, but yeah, definitely a book I'm very excited to read sometime in the future. And yeah, I would kind of like to read it before the movie comes out. Next, I have Insurgent and Allegiant by Veronica Roth, books 2 and 3 in the Divergent trilogy. I plan on trying to finish this trilogy sometime in the future, you guys. I read the first book. It was fine. It wasn't really one of my favorites, but it was tolerable. And I liked it enough that I would like to continue with the trilogy and see where it goes. Plus, you know, I was kind of hoping maybe instead of reading, I would be able to just finish the trilogy by watching the movies, but they never released like the final part to Allegiant, so I have no idea how it all ends. I'm left with a cliffhanger after the movies. So yeah, hopefully I'll get to these sometime in the future. The Revolution of Mirena M by Janet Fitch, and this is historical fiction taking place in Russia in 1916, pretty much at the dawn of the Russian Revolution. And yeah, following this young woman named Mirena and essentially her coming of age journey during this tumultuous period in Russian history. Yeah, y'all know I love Russian history. I definitely can't wait to get to this. Valkyrie by Kate O'Hearn. This is middle grade fiction following a young girl named Freya, and she is a Valkyrie. So if you can't already tell from that little bit of premise there, this is focused on Norse mythology, which I love Norse mythology. Norse mythology is really fun and unique. And yeah, one day she goes down to the mortal world to collect a fallen soldier. Yeah, I guess from what I can see from the synopsis, a bit of a love story perhaps between Freya and this fallen soldier, and yeah, her discovering more about the human world, and you know, versus her life being, you know, with the gods and goddesses of Norse mythology. So this sounds really cute. It is a series of some sort. I'm not sure how many books are in the series, but I got this first book for relatively cheap, and I hope to collect the rest of it. Wires and Nerve, Volume 2, Gone Rogue by Marissa Mayer. This is Volume 2, as you can see, in the Wires and Nerve duology. I have already read and reviewed this second book. I absolutely love this duology. Really cute, a nice companion piece to the Lunar Chronicles, which I adore. So yeah, if you want to know more about this, watch my review for it, please. I don't know what more there is to say about this book, but it's Cleopatra by Stacie Schiff, and this is nonfiction about the Egyptian queen, Cleopatra. That's about all I can say. But yeah, I've been kind of wanting to learn a lot more about Cleopatra recently, because I earlier read the Memoirs of Cleopatra by Margaret George, and I just found myself really interested with the life of Cleopatra and just wanting to kind of know more about it. And yeah, I have previously read The Witches by Stacie Schiff, which was also another piece of nonfiction, and I just kind of really liked her writing style in regards to nonfiction, so I figured I'll give Cleopatra a shot. And yeah, I think this is award. Yeah, it says it's a winner of the Pulitzer Prize, it looks like, so this must be pretty damn good. Victoria, the Heart and Mind of a Young Queen, the official companion to the Masterpiece presentation on PBS. Man, this is a long-ass title, you guys. And yeah, there's a foreword by Daisy Goodwin, who's written quite a lot of historical fiction, so I love Daisy Goodwin. And yeah, this book in general is just written by Helen Rappaport, and I love Helen Rappaport, you guys. Helen Rappaport tends to do a lot of Russian nonfiction, especially in regards to the Romanovs. So I really admire and trust her nonfiction, so this should be pretty good. And yeah, I am a big fan of the TV series Victoria, starring Jenna Coleman as the young Queen Victoria. Yeah, this is just a nice little companion piece to it. There's lots of gorgeous pictures in it, you guys. So many gorgeous pictures, and yeah, a lot of, I guess what this book is focusing on is a lot of the letters that Queen Victoria wrote to, you know, various different people. So yeah, this should be very, very interesting to sit and read. Virgin Earth by Philippa Gregory, and this is book 2 in this particular duology. I believe the duology is called Earthly Joys. So yeah, I finally have the complete duology here. I already own Earthly Joys, now I have the second part. And yeah, this takes place in, it's either the 1600s or 1700s, somewhere in there, and it follows a family of like royal gardeners, if I can remember the plot correctly. Yeah, y'all know I love Philippa Gregory. I definitely want to give this duology a shot sometime in the future. The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. This has a very complex plot, but it has something to do about a young girl who's left abandoned, and what I kind of got from the plot synopsis is just her journey trying to figure out the mysteries of her past, the mysteries of her family, and yeah, it takes her to like some sort of family estate, something like that. It's a very complex plot summary, you guys. But yeah, I've been wanting to try more Kate Morton. I have already read The Secret Keeper by her earlier in the year, and I really loved that. So yeah, I just want to try more Kate Morton with the hopes that I will continue to like her writing style. Hawkeye LA Woman by Matt Fraction. This is volume 3 of the Hawkeye series. I have read the first 2 books in the Hawkeye series. I really enjoyed them. I finally found a copy of this third one, and yeah, this is Marvel Comics, if you can't tell, following Hawkeye, who's played by Jeremy Renner in the Avenger movies. And yeah, these are really good. I really like them. They're just really well done. It makes Hawkeye definitely a very interesting character, you know, compared to how he is in the movies, unfortunately. Vikings Godhead by Cavan Scott and Staz Johnson. Man, they have some names right there. I love the History Channel TV series Vikings. Yeah, guys. Oh my god. So yeah, I about died when I discovered that there were some graphic novel companion pieces to go with the series. I know there's definitely a volume 2. There's probably some more coming out in the future, but yeah, I managed to find this for relatively cheap, and yeah, I have no idea what it's about. I'm assuming it follows Ragnar Lothbrok, and his Viking journeys with all the other Vikings, so that's good enough for me. The Room on Rua Male by Kristen Harmel. This is World War II historical fiction following three people, one a newlywed woman, the other a British pilot, and the other 11-year-old girl, a Jewish girl. And yeah, just the three of these very different characters, how they connect, how their lives intertwine during this war. And this is a book I have already read and reviewed, and I also won this on Goodreads, and if you want to know any more about it, please check out my review. Was Anastacia by Ariel Lawhon, and oh my goodness, you guys, at the time of recording this video, I am actually in the middle of reading this book, and I freaking love it. This is so good. If you watched one of my top 5 videos earlier in the year, my video that it was called something about, you know, my most anticipated books of 2018, I believe Was Anastacia was my #1 choice for most anticipated for this year, and so far I am not disappointed. I really am enjoying this. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows the real woman known as Anna Anderson, who claimed to be the Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov. But if you know anything about your Russian history, you know that the Romanovs, they were all brutally executed. So yeah, was this woman really Anastasia? Was it all just a fraud and a hoax? And yeah, I'm absolutely loving this book. Yeah, guys, so stay tuned. The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman, and this is the first book in this particular series. Takes place in the 1800s, follows a young woman, 18-year-old woman named Lady Helen, and yeah, her kind of getting wrapped up into kind of the darkness of Regency London and finding out about, you know, various shadowy different things. And I think there's like some supernatural elements to this novel as well, and it is a young adult novel, so yeah, obviously some romance will occur. And yeah, I really wanted to go ahead and pick this book up, mostly because of my love of Alison Goodman and her Iona series. I loved the Iona books. Those were so good. I love them. So I have faith in Alison Goodman that she will write another fantastic series. The It Girls by Karen Harper. This is definitely a book I'm very excited about. It follows two sisters, Eleanor and Lucille. Eleanor becomes a famous writer who writes kind of, I guess, rather scandalous material, and Lucille is kind of the infamous Lady Duff Gordon, if you will, who was on the Titanic when it sank. Yeah, a lot of scandal there with her and her husband in regards to them being on the lifeboats and how they treated other people in the lifeboats. So yeah, a lot of drama there if you know anything about Lady Lucille Duff Gordon and her husband in regards to Titanic drama. But yeah, from my understanding of this novel, it is about these two sisters, you know, one who becomes a fashion designer, one who becomes a famous writer, and yeah, a bit of Titanic drama in there, you know. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. Sounds pretty different for me. My Dear Hamilton by Stephanie Dray and Laura Kamoe, another book that was on my most anticipated for the year. I have previously read America's First Daughter by these two authors. I loved it to pieces. I definitely ran out and got this as soon as it came out on shelves. And yeah, historical fiction during the American Revolutionary War, following Eliza Schuyler Hamilton, the wife of Alexander Hamilton. So yeah, definitely can't wait to get to this soon. This one is pretty obvious, I believe. Mona Lisa by Jean Calogridis, and this is historical fiction during the late 1400s, during the Italian Renaissance, and yeah, the woman who becomes the inspiration for Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. So yeah, I have previously read a few Jean Calogridis books. I loved her. She's kind of like the Philippa Gregory of Italian Renaissance historical fiction, if you will. The Terror by Dan Simons, and if this title is familiar, it's because it was recently an AMC television series, and this is historical fiction following these two ships, the Terror and the Erebus. They're supposed to be going on this expedition mission to try and find, you know, some sort of passageway for future trading, but of course things are going terribly wrong up in the Arctic. And yeah, it's a novel of psychological horror and yeah, these men stuck on these boats and what's going on. Yeah, I love the TV series. You guys, the TV series was so good. I immediately was like, I gotta pick up this book, because I have a feeling the book is going to have a lot more details and depth that the television series probably had to omit. So yeah, I definitely cannot wait to get to this. The next 6 books that I'm going to share with you guys all come from the Poldark series by Winston Graham. And this is historical fiction taking place during the late 1700s, going into the early 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, this is a BBC/Masterpiece TV series. I love the Poldark TV series, you guys. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So I've been wanting to pick up the books and read them. And yeah, the first 6 have been reissued with these new TV tie-in covers. So I'm kind of slowly collecting all of the various different covers. But yeah, I have the first 6 so far. There's like 12 books in the series in total. But yeah, the first books in the series are Ross Poldark and Demelza. And then we have Jeremy Poldark and Warlegan. And The Black Moon and The Four Swans. Yeah, that's all I have right now so far. There are some more coming out in the series. And yeah, seriously, these covers are gorgeous. The Poldark show has some very sexy, pretty people. Original Sin, Thor and Loki, The 10th Realm, and this is a Marvel graphic novel. I'm not really quite positive what's happening in this particular edition with this comic. It just has Thor and Loki in it, and I love Thor and Loki. They're 2 of my favorite Marvel characters. And my understanding, I think this has something to do about their mysterious sister Angela. I think this is that series, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, definitely can't wait to get to this. And oh boy, this is quite a scandalous cover. There is lots of cleavage on there. Citadel by Kate Moss, and this is book 3 in this particular series. The good thing about this trilogy is that each book stands alone. You don't have to read it all in any particular order. If you want to skip a book, you can. Really, the only thread that this trilogy, what they all have in common, is that they all take place in France at some sort of point in history. So yeah, the other books in this series are Labyrinth and Sepulchre, and yeah, those 2 books, absolutely no sort of tie-ins, you know, you can kind of read them separately. So yeah, I'm assuming this book you can do the exact same. Yeah, this takes place in France during World War II and following the French resistance, and yeah, I guess the code name is called Citadel, and yeah, following a lot of women, it sounds like, a lot of women in this resistance in particular. So I have previously enjoyed Labyrinth and Sepulchre by Kate Moss, part of the trilogy, so I'm hoping I enjoy this one just as much. Circe by Madeline Miller. This is historical fiction, Greek mythology, if you will, following Circe, who is notorious for being part of Homer's The Odyssey, where she turns Odysseus and his men into a bunch of pigs. Yeah, I'm very excited to read this book. I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about it. Macbeth by Joe Nesbo, and this is taking place in the 1970s, and if you can't tell from the title, it's a retelling of William Shakespeare's Macbeth. Yeah, just taking place in the 70s, yeah, having to do with crime and the drug trade and this and that. It sounds perfect for you know, a perfect setting for a retelling of Macbeth, and I'm just very excited to see how Joe Nesbo kind of incorporates certain things from Macbeth, and yeah, like the witches. I want to know how the witches are going to play into this, because they're probably not going to be real witches. But yeah, I'm definitely very, very excited about this. Macbeth is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession by Alison Weir, and this is book 2 in her Six Tudor Queens series. Historical fiction, taking place during the reign of King Henry VIII, and yeah, this whole series, it's going to follow the 6 queens of Henry VIII. I love Henry VIII and the 6 Queens story, because all the queens, they all have their various different personalities and quirks and whatnot. Anne Boleyn is one of my favorite wives. So I definitely can't wait to get to this. I just love Alison Weir as a historical fiction writer in general anyway. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. You all saw that I had just hauled Circe as well. Yeah, this is her first book, if I'm not mistaken, The Song of Achilles. Yeah, about the story of Achilles during the Trojan War, and I believe it is told through the the point of view of Patroclus. Yeah, I definitely can't wait to get to this. I've been wanting to read a lot more Greek-based historical fiction, to be quite honest. And yeah, I've heard nothing but fantastic things for this book. Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. And this takes place in the 1960s along the Italian coastline, and it follows a young innkeeper and I guess his chance encounter meeting this gorgeous woman that he sees walking on the beach, and yeah, their relationship. And I'm not really quite positive what more there is to this book. To let you all in on something, this is a book that Barnes & Noble, they were having some sort of big promotion. I don't know why. It was some sort, because this book is several years old, I believe. There was some sort of big Barnes & Noble promotion going on, and yeah, they were handing out coupons to get like $3 off of this particular book. So I was like, you know what, that's pretty awesome. I'll use this coupon and buy this book, because it made the book relatively cheap, actually. So yeah, that's really the only reason I bought it, because of the Barnes & Noble promotion that was going on. But it sounds like something I will still enjoy, though. A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, and this is a companion piece that goes to her A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I guess this is kind of a book that's going in between the first 3 books and the next 3 books that are coming out. And yeah, it's just a very small, short book, essentially a novella. I don't know really what's happening in this particular book. It's just part of the series. I love the series. Kind of don't really care what's happening. The unfortunate thing is I've seen nothing but negative reviews, so I don't know what the problem is with this book. All of the reviews are very, very negative and hateful. So I'm curious to read it and form my own opinion about it. Fatal Throne, The Wives of Henry VIII Tell All, and this is written by various different authors, and each author is telling a short story about one of the wives of King Henry VIII. And yeah, this is young adult fiction. I'm not really going to expect very much from this book, because I think what the intent and purpose of this book is like I said, it's for a strictly young adult audience, and yeah, perhaps a beginning piece, you know, for people who want to get into Tudor historical fiction, people who want to learn more about the wives of Henry VIII. But yeah, even though I'm very familiar with the subject matter, I wanted to still pick this up and see, you know, what type of book this is, and if it is a good beginning piece for young readers, if you get my drift. But yeah, it still sounds pretty good, though. You know, each wife is going to get a little chapter. They're going to be explored. Still sounds right up my alley. I hope this book is showing up. It's a very dark book. I don't know who designed this book cover, because you can barely see anything that's on it. Once Upon a Time, Henry and Violet by Michelle Zink, and this is a companion piece to the ABC television series Once Upon a Time, which most recently just ended its entire run, the series finale and whatnot. I'm a big fan of the Once Upon a Time TV series. It's essentially just a Disney mashup of all your favorite Disney characters. And yeah, this particular book is talking about Henry and Violet, who are 2 young teenagers on the show, if you don't know who they are. Yeah, other than that, I really don't know what else is going on in this book. I just picked it up because I like the TV show. As Old as Time, A Twisted Tale by Liz Braswell. And yeah, the little title up at the very top, it says, What if Belle's mother cursed the beast? Oh boy, talk about a premise right there. That sounds very fascinating, though, because, you know, the Disney cartoon Beauty and the Beast gets cursed. We don't know anything else about the lady who cursed him. So that sounds really interesting, that maybe the Enchantress is Belle's mother. Ooh. It definitely adds a dark, twisted little turn there to the narrative between the Beast and Belle. But yeah, obviously, as I've already mentioned, this is a retelling of the Beauty and the Beast story. I guess more specifically, the Disney adaptation. Definitely can't wait to get to this. I have previously read A Whole New World by Liz Braswell, where she retold the story of Aladdin, and I really love that, so I have high hopes for this book. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is World War II historical fiction, taking place in war-torn France during Nazi occupation, following 2 sisters. And yeah, there's probably a lot more to the plot other than that. It is a very, very gigantic book, but apparently this is very popular. it has a very high rating on Goodreads, and yeah, up here at the top it says soon to be a motion picture, so that sounds cool. Definitely sounds right up my alley in terms of historical fiction, so definitely can't wait to get to this. The Crown's Fate by Evelyn Skye, and this is book 2 in this particular duology. The first book was called The Crown's Game, and this is young adult historical fiction taking place in essentially an alternate Russia of some sort, kind of right at the very end of the 1800s. Yeah, and fantasy and magic, and yeah, it's about 2 spellcasters. So yeah, definitely a very alternative take on Russian history involving some fantasy elements. I really enjoyed the first book, and it's just a duology, so that's a good thing. You don't have to sit and wait for a million books in the series. But yeah, I definitely want to finish up the series and see how it ends. This one makes me sad. This is The Princess Diaries by Carrie Fisher, and this was written by Carrie Fisher, as you can see, who passed away, I think, in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she wrote this that year that she passed, which is kind of strange. And yeah, I've been wanting to read this. My sister recently bought it, and I was like, I want to read it too. And it's just a very short, tiny book, easy to probably get through. Get inside the headspace of Carrie Fisher, who is a very fascinating woman. Very fascinating, complex woman at that. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for a couple years now. Fortunately, my sister bought it before me. This is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is historical fiction starting in the 1900s, following a Korean family through 4 different generations. Yeah, this one has a pretty complex synopsis as well. But yeah, that's the general gist of it, following this Korean family. And yeah, definitely sounds very exciting. I really enjoy reading Asian historical fiction. I don't read enough of it. You guys, this book is freaking adorable. This is Ensling the Last by Catherine Applegate. I have no idea what this book is about, you guys. I'm not even going to bother to read the synopsis. I kind of don't really care what it's about. Me and my sister, we saw this book. We were like, oh my god, look how freaking cute that is. And we just bought it. We just bought it. We really didn't give a damn what it's about. Yeah, we've seen various other books by Catherine Applegate. Her books always look really cute, and they always have something to do with cute animals. So, yeah, I'll get to this sometime in the future. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good, because this was definitely a pure impulse buy based off of the cover, and sometimes I hate doing that. You know, you already spend a lot of money on books as it is, and sometimes you got to be really careful what you're buying, because if you buy the wrong thing, you just wasted a lot of money. But I don't think this is going to be bad at all. Even though it wasn't impulse buy, I think it's still going to be a very, very good book. It just looks really adorable. What could this be about, I wonder? This is Star Wars Last Shot, a Han and Lando novel by Daniel Jose Older. Yeah, if you can't tell, I mean, this is pretty obvious. You guys, a Star Wars book about a young Han Solo and young Lando Calrissian. I just recently saw the Solo movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, this sounds like a nice little companion piece to the movie, if you will. Another series that I'm trying to finish up. I've read the first book in this particular series. This is the Dorothy Must Die series by Danielle Page. Yeah, I have read the first book. I do own the second book, which I have not read yet. And then, yeah, I was like, I need to finish this series. So I went ahead and got books 3 and 4, that being Yellow Brick War and The End of Oz. If you can't tell, obviously, these are young adult retellings of the Wizard of Oz story. But Dorothy is the villain, which is very fascinating, you guys. I really like that twist. This is a book that has a very, very vague plot summary, but I got it mostly for Ruth Ware, who I've been enjoying recently. I've previously read The Woman in Cabin 10 by her, which I loved and enjoyed, and then I also got The Lying Game, which I enjoyed. So yeah, this is going to be my 3rd book by Ruth Ware, which I have high hopes that I'm definitely going to enjoy this as well. This is The Death of Mrs Westaway. This was recently released. Yeah, what Ruth Ware tends to do: contemporary psychological thrillers, mysteries, some sort of murder aspect. And yeah, this follows a woman. She's received some sort of mysterious inheritance from the death of her grandmother. Thing is, though, her grandmother has been dead. I think the plot summary said something about her grandparents have been dead for like 20 years, so why is she just now getting some sort of inheritance? So yeah, she goes to the family estate. There's some drama. Something weird and creepy. I don't know. Like I said, the plot summary is very vague. It doesn't say what exactly is going on, just that there's some creepy things, some disturbing things. I definitely have hopes that I will enjoy this. Like I said, I've previously read 2 books by Ruth Ware. They didn't let me down, so hopefully this doesn't let me down as well. Next is Argos, the story of Odysseus as told by his loyal dog by Ralph Hardy. I guess this is self-explanatory. A sort of retelling of Homer's The Odyssey, if you will, but as the title suggests, told by his loyal dog. And that sounds absolutely adorable, you guys. This is middle grade fiction. I don't really expect too much from this novel. When I was kind of glancing through it, it does look very simplistic and very easy to read, especially for young children, so I'm not going to expect too much when I do read it. But still, I think it's a really cute concept with the dog and just retelling the Odyssey in this manner. These next 3 books that I'm going to be showing you guys come from the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series by Rick Riordan. Here we have book 1, The Sword of Summer, book 2, The Hammer of Thor, and book 3, The Ship of the Dead. And these are middle grade fiction, if you don't already know that. Obviously, Rick Riordan, he's written the popular Percy Jackson series, the Kane Chronicles. Yeah, Rick Riordan, he excels at retelling mythology, whether that's Greek mythology or Egyptian mythology. This time around he's doing Norse mythology, which I really love. So yeah, I'm definitely really curious to see Rick Riordan's special magical take on the gods of Norse mythology. It should be really fun. I've not really heard too much about this trilogy. You know, everyone kind of goes on and on about how much they love Percy Jackson, and yeah, I've just not really heard a ton of hype for this series, you know. I'm going to assume it's good. Rick Riordan, I don't think he can write a bad book, can he? Next is Stolen Beauty by Lori Lico Albanese. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It sounds like a pretty name. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. This is a book I've been dying to get my hands on for a while now, and I'm trying to think how best to describe this book. It's a bit of a complicated plot in some ways, but have any of you guys happened to have seen the movie that came out a couple years ago called The Woman in Gold? It starred Ryan Reynolds and Helen Mirren and Tatiana Maslany. I freaking adore that movie, you guys. I don't think it did good box office wise, but it's seriously one of my favorite movies. And yeah, when I found out there was a book that's kind of the same subject matter essentially, I was like, I have to get this book. And yet, the synopsis, as much as I can give away, it is historical fiction taking place during World War II. I believe this particular narrative is divided into 2 narratives. I think some of it takes place kind of at the turn of the century, and then the rest of it takes place during World War II. Yeah, about the plight of this one particular Jewish family. And yeah, like I said, takes place during World War II. I think y'all can figure out how that's gonna go down. So yeah, just kind of this relationship between this niece and aunt, and yeah, some paintings are involved as well. I'm probably being very vague here, but yeah, this seriously, this is a fantastic story, I think, and like I've already mentioned, I really loved the Woman in Gold movie that I think this book is inspired by to some degree, or at least the real history behind it. Next, Juliet's Nurse by Lois Levine, and this is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, but my understanding, this is told through the point of view of the nurse who takes care of young Juliet. And that sounds pretty awesome. I'm definitely very intrigued by that. A lot of times when people do retellings of Romeo and Juliet, they tend to, you know, retell Romeo and Juliet's story from their point of view. So this sounds very, very different, that it's going to be told from the point of view of the nurse. Definitely very excited to read this. Oh boy, you guys, y'all know that one of my favorite men of classic literature is Mr. Rochester from Jane Eyre, and that's exactly what this book is by Sarah Shoemaker. It is a retelling of the Jane Eyre story, but told through the point of view of Mr. Rochester. I'm not really quite sure how much much into Mr. Rochester's life this book is going through, because I'm going to assume a lot of it is perhaps going to take place before the events of Jane Eyre, before Mr. Rochester even meets Jane. And so yeah, I'm assuming a lot of stuff pre-Jane, and then during his relationship with Jane, and then yeah, obviously a lot of stuff post-Jane and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely cannot wait to get my hands on this and read it. It sounds super, super good, I think. I forgot to add this book with my other Poldark books, you guys. This is book 7 in the Poldark series, and this book is The Angry Tide, and on the cover of this one we have Morwenna and Drake, who are perhaps one of my favorite couples in the TV series, you guys. Look how cute they are. Once again, more hot, sexy people. I don't understand it. And last, I have The Vatican Princess, a novel of Lucrezia Borgia by C.W. Gortner. I think this is pretty self-explanatory from the title. This is historical fiction during the Italian Renaissance in Rome at the Vatican, following Lucrezia Borgia, who is part of the infamous Borgia dynasty. Yeah, sex, murder, all sorts of craziness going on with this family. I'm obsessed with this family. They are insane. But yeah, this definitely sounds like a really promising novel. So that's it for this video, you guys. In the comments below, any of these books that you have read, any of these books you want me to read quicker, just let me know your thoughts down below. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, give me a like these other videos. Bye, guys.